One of the most attractive points of the Nintendo Switch 2 is the price of entry on this console. It's currently the most affordable option out there, but what I've found after owning this for a little over a year is that there's a few things about this console that I think are super annoying, and some of these things can actually end up costing you money down the line. Now, one of the first things I noticed about the Switch 2 that really annoyed the heck out of me is they didn't really improve the Joy-Cons a whole lot in some of the areas that I think they really should have. I think the A, B, X, Y buttons are extremely small and they're very close to the surface of the Joy-Con itself. They're not very prominent at all and they just don't really feel great. And just to give you an idea of how small the A, B, X, Y buttons are, they're even smaller than the buttons that you would find on a Game Boy Color. And speaking of small buttons, the D-pad is not even what I would consider a D-pad. It's 4 directional buttons, kind of similar to what you would have found on the Nintendo 64 back in the day. And I really think this was a missed opportunity for Nintendo to put out a legitimate D-pad, because they are the absolute masters of creating a D-pad that we grew up loving, and I really wish that they would have taken this opportunity to actually give us a true D-pad. Now, another thing that a lot of people share this concern about is the joysticks themselves. They just don't feel very robust. They work now and they're perfectly fine currently, but they just don't really inspire a lot of confidence in me for their long-term durability. And if they're anything like the Switch 1 joysticks, they wear out pretty quickly. They're not really serviceable. I mean, you can pull these apart and put new joysticks in, but that's not something for the faint of heart. And they're just not very tall, which I do understand they're trying to maximize portability, but I really think this was a missed opportunity to put full joysticks on the Joy-Cons themselves. So if you're thinking about buying a Switch 2 or you already own one, you will probably very quickly realize I need an actual controller. If I really want to enjoy this, I'm going to need a standalone controller of some sort. Now, in my opinion, even just playing on a cheap, maybe $30 8-bit do Ultimate 2C is a substantial upgrade from playing on the Joy-Cons. And even if they had just put similar joysticks and a similar D-pad and then enlarged the ABXY buttons just a little bit, I think they really could have improved the handheld experience while adding only a little bit of size. And speaking of the size, the Switch 2 is very, very thin, and for a lot of people, this is not super ergonomic. It's hard to kind of get a good grip on the Joy-Cons, and playing in handheld mode is just not my favorite for that reason. So I think if they had added some of these extra features, they would have taken up a little more space, and it would have thickened up the Joy-Cons themselves, but in my opinion, that would actually only make the console just a little bit more comfortable. So what you'll probably end up doing is looking for a Switch 2 Pro controller. These run about 90 bucks. Or you might look at something like the Nixie Hyperion 3, which is out now. That's gonna add over $100. Those are much more ergonomic, but they're gonna add a little bit of expense to your overall ownership experience. Now, I'm not gonna go over all my controller recommendations in this video. I've got another video where I talk a lot about that. You can go check that out. But any of the 8-bit do stuff is really good. This is the Pro 3. I really like it. I just got this Switch 2 Pro controller that is the Resident Evil version. I figured since it was Resident Evil, I had to pick it up. But nevertheless, that's something that's absolutely going to add to the cost of owning and really enjoying your Switch 2. Now, another thing that's really annoying to me about the Switch 2 is actually the kickstand. The kickstand is much more robust on the Switch 2 than on the Switch 1. And I actually saw another person talking about this here on YouTube, and I wasn't sure if I was the only person that was a little frustrated by this, but I've already started to see wear around the edges of the kickstand. And this is actually a metal kickstand of some sort. And so it's painted or coated. And as it starts to wear, you can actually see the metal starting to show through on the bottom down here. And that's really just a small complaint, but I think it's still something worth mentioning. Okay, and then here's one that I think is pretty controversial. A lot of people have opinions and ideas about this, and I do too. Now, I'm a huge proponent of owning physical cartridges, physical discs, and actually owning the media that you purchase. I'm a huge proponent of continuing that, and I feel like Nintendo's kind of trying to move away from that. I think if they could have their way, every single game that you purchase from them would only belong to you, would have no resale ability, and would be downloaded directly from them. Now, they do still make some games that come on physical carts, but they also make what a lot of people refer to as the game key cards. Now, this is Resident Evil 8. I knew ahead of time that this was a game key card, and I know this sounds silly, but I honestly just wanted the case. I wanted a case just so I can have it on my shelf. Sue me. However, with the game key cards, you kind of get the worst of both worlds with them. So when you get this, all that the cartridge is essentially like a license or a key. And it basically just tells your Nintendo Switch that yes, you have the legal right to play this game. The downside of it is none of the data for the game is actually stored on the cartridge in these game key cards. You still have to insert the card, go and download all that data. And I think right now, when I looked last night, this was like around 25 gigs, I think, is what it was taking up in terms of storage on my Switch 2. So you still have to download the data. It takes up storage space on your Switch. And the worst part of all is you still have to have the key card in the slot to play the stupid thing. But if you had just bought the digital version, you wouldn't have to insert the key card in order to play it. You could still just play it on the go without carrying all your cartridges around with you. Now, just a side note, if you're curious whether or not a game that you're purchasing that you think is physical is a key card game or not, they'll have a little icon down here on the case that looks like a key, and then it says game key card. And on the cartridge itself, it will have a little key icon as well. So look for that and make sure that you know what you're getting ahead of time. But that's what you want to look out for. Now, speaking of game key cards, a lot of the stuff that is out now is just easier and more affordable to get in digital form, because a lot of times what I'll notice is when I go through the sales section on the eShop, a lot of times there's really good titles that are much cheaper if you pay for the download version than if you went to the store and bought them. Every once in a while you'll find a sale on a physical cartridge, but typically I get a way better deal with the digital downloads, even though that's not really what I like doing. So I think for a lot of us, we are going to end up downloading a lot of games, and not necessarily because we want to, but because that's just the most affordable way to get it. And sometimes the local game store may not have what you want. And so with that comes the need for a lot of storage. The Nintendo Switch 2 comes with, I think, 256 gigs, and you're absolutely gonna run out of that pretty quickly. And so what you'll have to do when you get your Switch 2 and you start downloading games and eating up all that internal storage is you're gonna have to buy SD cards. Now, you can't put just any SD card in your Switch 2. It has to be a micro SD Express. Now, I don't know all the details of what makes the micro SD Express cards different from all the other types of micro SD cards. You will see on the back of them that they have additional contact points, but to boil it down, your Switch will not work with a micro SD card that is not an Express version. Here's where this gets really expensive. Right now, there's a huge demand for digital storage and memory. To give you a quick anecdote, 1 year ago, I purchased a WD Black 2 terabyte NVMe SSD to store photo and video files on. And this was the SN770, I can't remember which version, but last year, that exact 2 terabyte hard drive cost me $120, which I was fine paying. I went to buy another one recently and I almost fell out of my chair when I found out that that exact same hard drive was now $385. So it's more than tripled in price in less than a year. Now, while not every form of storage is going to have increased in price that drastically over the past year, you've probably noticed that SD cards, hard drives, all that stuff is not cheap anymore. So that's one thing about the Switch 2 that is going to probably end up costing you some money as you continue playing new games. So right out of the box, yeah, the Switch 2 is super affordable and I love it. I absolutely love this console. I love being able to take this thing to the coffee shop. However, if you're buying one, just keep in mind that there are some expenses that are going to come up. And some of these expenses are necessary and some of them aren't. But just to sum up some of the things that you probably will need or want to buy after you buy the Switch 2, you're probably going to want a better controller. You're going to need a case of some sort if you're actually playing it on the go. You'll likely want a screen protector. You'll need more storage. And then I think we probably are going into an era where we are going to be paying a decent amount of money for games. And just one example of a game that I paid a lot of money for, I wanted to play Donkey Kong Bonanza pretty much right when it came out, and I think I paid $70 for the game. Now, that's not a lot of money, but I know for some people that can definitely add up quick. If there's 3 games that you want that are mainline Nintendo games, it's not going to be hard for you to rack up over $200 just in a few games. Now, that said, all the stuff that Nintendo puts out, I've been really happy with. All the Zelda games are a ton of fun. Donkey Kong's a ton of fun. All the Mario titles are fun, but they are going to cost you a little bit of money. So I just wanted to share some of those thoughts. If you're thinking about buying a Switch 2, you might want to budget for some of these things and just look out for some of these little quirks. If you own a Switch 2 and you've also noticed things about it that you really don't care for, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear. And until next time, thanks for hanging out.